week's episode of Assassination Classroom. Koro-Sensei and Itona Horibe end up having a monstrous rematch, and Class 3E has a brand new student. As evil and manipulative as Shiro actually is, I have to give him some props. He came very close to actually defeating Koro-Sensei this week, and he didn't even have to lift a finger. It was all a part of his crazy plan to basically brainwash the character of Itona into killing Koro-Sensei with these experimental tentacles. This week's episode saw the introduction of a brand new student for Class 3E, and of course, that does end up being Itona Horibe. However, getting there is quite a journey. I really like this episode, though, because they also focused a little bit more on some of the other random students from Class 3E, in particular, the bullies. Terasaka, Hazama, Yoshida, and of course, Muramatsu. I love these characters. They're kind of like these extreme caricatures of the bullies that you saw from The Simpsons, with Terasaka basically being like a more badass version of Nelson Muntz. But the biggest things to take away from this week's episode of Ass Class is that Koro-Sensei and Itona get to have an epic rematch, and we finally get some backstory on Itona, getting to see where he came from. Not to mention, we finally get to delve into his psyche a little bit, which is completely damaged and monstrous, but by the end, he ends up just being another normal student going to class. The battle between Koro-Sensei and Itona is short-lived, but it was still a really tense scene, because Koro-Sensei was trapped in this very small space. Whenever he would actually dodge Itona's abilities, he would end up slamming into the walls, which of course would start to melt his skin. He had no choice but to finally unleash some more powerful abilities, this big beam attack, which he does by literally combining all of his tentacles into one, turning them into this big massive ball, which just erupts into the air, and this allows him to defeat Itona pretty easily, and this is where the biggest twist of the episode comes into play. This whole attack with Itona was actually just a big plan by Shiro. He was planning on basically abandoning the character of Itona and sort of turning him into this, like, bait, if you will. Basically, what he wanted to do was that he wanted him to become more attached to Koro-Sensei so that Koro-Sensei would finally start to see him strictly as a student. And when Koro-Sensei sees someone as a student, he will go out of his way to save them, even if it would cost him his very own life. And what they do is they take Itona back and they lure Koro-Sensei out to this area where there are these, like, weird lights and waves, which apparently slow him down, and he can't fight against them because he's having to dodge all of these attacks. He's constantly getting hit. Parts of his body are starting to melt away, but luckily his students, who have been learning the art of assassination, manage to take out all of Shiro's guards, and Shiro ends up running away with his tail behind his legs. I have a feeling we're going to see more of Shiro in the future. I cannot wait to see that, especially the big reveal of his character. There's still a lot more to this guy, a lot of mystery that they're not getting into quite yet. In fact, we do get a little bit of flashback this week. We get to learn where Itona came from. Apparently, his family owned this, like, cell phone parts store, which was a very small store, but they were competing with a lot of big chains, and his father always reassured Itona that it doesn't really matter, like, how big we are, as long as we work with hard work and integrity, we'll be able to survive. However, something really bad ended up happening. All of the employees left, and Itona's parents just suddenly disappeared and completely abandoned him, leaving him in the streets. That's when he was found by Shiro, and they finally started performing all of these crazy experiments on him, which would basically turn him into a tentacled bioweapon. Unlike Koro-Sensei, however, because he is a human that had these pieces which were grafted to him, he actually doesn't have full control over what his body can do, and every single day he has to go through these treatments. Now that he's been abandoned by Shiro, he's starting to literally go insane, and it's only a matter of time before he's actually killed. That's where the students of Class 3E come in. They decide they want to try and bring him out of his funk and sort of reassure him that with a little bit of hard work and just relaxing and not thinking about revenge all the damn time, that you can actually have a pretty good life and you can turn things around. As bad as things seem today, they could look a lot better tomorrow. This lesson comes in the form of course, the bullies. I love these characters. They make sure to spend some time with each of them. First, they go to get some ramen, which is, according to Itona, very disgusting, but they're reassured later on that when Muramatsu actually ends up taking over the family business, he'll make things better. Very similar to Itona, who wants to sort of rectify everything that happened with his mother and his father in that cell phone company. You have the character of Hazama, who is trying to influence Itona with revenge, with the story of the Count of Monte Cristo, which I'm not sure that's the best thing you should be doing. Probably not that great to nurture his personality that way. You have the character of Yoshida, who apparently his father owns this motorcycle company, and it's really great because basically he sort of tries to drive away Itona's fears and doubts by literally driving really fast on this track that they own, but Itona just ends up getting thrown away. It always ends up being Terasaka, however, who ends up being the big bully with a heart of gold, who actually ends up influencing Itona quite a bit. There's a callback to that one scene where he tries to hit him with a tentacle and he ends up grabbing it, and even when he's weakened, Terasaka mentions that he's still just as powerful and it still really hurts him, but he just lets him know if he just chills, relaxes, and accepts what's going on, that he can make a better life for himself. He just needs to basically act like an idiot like the rest of us. And as Karma said, only Terasaka could really put it that way. So the episode ends with Itona becoming an official member of Class 3E. It looks like he's finally going to be going to school. His tentacles are now officially gone. They've been removed by Koro-Sensei, and he's now another official brand new cast member for the series. It's weird because we have so many strange students in the class already. We have Nagisa, who's basically an assassination protege. We have Ritsu, who is essentially just an AI student who exists within this massive computer and in apparently all of their cell phones. And now you have this weird experimental human who also himself is sort of like an expert assassin. And I can't wait to see how he's going to interact with the other students when they go about like their normal school day. That being said, this was a great introduction to a brand new student, as well as focusing on some of the other characters that we just don't get to see all that much. So what's the rundown on this week's episode of Assassination Classroom? I was kind of hoping we would get a little more action, maybe a little more stylized action in this episode. That being said, this was still a pretty exciting one with lots of great humor and some surprising tense moments. I like that they focused a little bit more on the backstory of Itona because, one, we get to learn a lot about him, but there's still a lot of mystery as to where his powers truly came from. Of course, Shiro is the one who gave him the idea of using the tentacles, but where did they come from, and how are they connected to Koro-Sensei? It's still a complete mystery right now. Maybe we'll get some more answers in the coming episodes. Itona actually joining the class is something that I kind of figured would happen eventually. It was hinted at very heavily in the first season that eventually he probably would become a part of the class, but I'm actually kind of surprised that they removed the tentacles, basically to sort of put him on par with the other students, and it would just be unfair if he was in the classroom being able to use those abilities to take out Koro-Sensei. But like I said, the thing I look forward to seeing the most is just him interacting with the other students, because all the students of the class are just so weird and ridiculous in their own special way, and I can't wait to see how he sort of reacts to all of that. This will be the first time that we've seen him in a situation where he isn't all like murder, murder, kill, kill. The big lesson, of course, from this episode is just this. When life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And when no one's looking, put a little vodka in that lemonade too. So there it is, my friends. That is my review of this week's episode of Assassination Classroom. I really enjoyed it quite a bit. It gave me a nice warm feeling, not to mention it had some cool action scenes and a brand new character is now a part of the class. So I'm going to give this week's episode a 4 out of 5. Check it out, Assassination Classroom fans. You're definitely going to see something you like. But if you did watch this week's episode of Ask Class, make sure to tell me what you thought about it in the comment section below. Are you excited over the prospect of Itona becoming a member of Class 3E? What do you want to see from the rest of Assassination Classroom? Make sure to tell me in the comment section below. Thank you guys for watching my review. Make sure to like it, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. That way you'll be able to see all of our latest anime and manga reviews. Thank you guys again for watching, and as always, stay dandy, baby!